I want to welcome you back into Iggy's Sports Talk. I am your host, Jiggy Nizuski, your Iggy for short. And I want to thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If you have not yet, make sure to subscribe on whatever audio platform that you're listening to and also on YouTube so you get updated whenever a podcast episode is posted. But I have a very exciting and special interview planned with the founder and CEO of Eisman Digital and the author of The Evolution of Sports Social Media, Aaron Eisman. He's one of the smartest minds in sports social media up to this date, and he's worked for the NFL, Turner Sports, and Bleacher Report. And in this conversation, Aaron and I talk a little bit about some of the ups and downs of working in sports social media. And then Aaron also explains a little bit of some of the best ways of how to get a job and into sports social media. Let's listen to Aaron and I's conversation now. I always like to start off these interviews sort of talking about the favorite moments of 2022. And so what was one of those moments for you?
I think my favorite moment and been first since one of the reasons I moved back to Los Angeles after being in New York City for a couple of years was to watch my nephew grow up. And cool. It's my oldest sister's first child. Ethan is his name. And so, I think ultimately I don't know if it's necessarily a moment, but obviously watching his birthday on March 1st this year was great. We had some fun stuff we did with him wearing a number 2 and him having like a cake where he can smash it and have fun. So that was cool. And just watching him grow up throughout the year, seeing him learn new words, putting sentences together. He knows more about construction trucks than I do. So seeing him like call out a tractor or like a backhoe loader, I think is one of them what they're called. Right. He can call it out before I can, and it's impressive. So just seeing him grow and develop, it's pretty great to see.
That's pretty cool. And yeah, it must have been really cool, like you said, hearing the first few words, and really being able to play with them and everything like that. I remember when I was younger, I was a big Bob the Builder fan, and I always find it interesting how younger boys are so interested in trucks, and like that's the thing that they usually gravitate to.
Yeah, he's very much cars and trucks has been his go-to. He's not in that building mode yet where he's like building Legos or building blocks or anything like that. He was always, I think lately, the last year or 2 years, since he's been developing, it's always been about, knowing what a truck is, knowing what type of thanks to this show called Blippi, actually, he's learned like the different types of trucks and tractors and cars and all this stuff because Blippi in real life actually shows you what the actual vehicle is. And he has such a photographic memory, I guess, at 2.5 years old that he can picture when someone says something on TV, he can picture it in real life and see it and say what the actual term is. So yeah, trucks and cars are his go-to so far.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. Wow, you got a really smart nephew there. Maybe we'll see him doing something incredible in sports and using that photographic memory to his advantage. But over this past year, you've written a book called The Evolution of Sports Social Media, sort of explaining some of your experiences within the industry, also getting some great interviews from other people in high parts of like ESPN, Fox Sports, and also a few other athletes as well. And so explain a little bit to what readers can learn in your new book.
I think I've spent the last 8 years in sports social media. I would say throughout writing this book, I think I had about that imposter syndrome where you think you're not the right guy to write this book or right person to write this book. Mm-hmm. And, what I realized over a period of time of interviewing people, I've interviewed people like Lee Steinberg, Dave Meltzer, and Hunter Pence, World Series champion, JaVale McGee, and all these big name people. And I just, shoot my shot and just, asked the hundreds of people if they wanted to be in the book and if they wanted to be interviewed. And a lot of them that I didn't think would say yes, did say yes. And I got some great interviews. And so along the way, you'll learn about the birth of social media at ESPN. I talked to the people who started it there in 2010 to 2012. Then you will talk about Bleacher Report. You'll learn about Bleacher Report, which I was a little bit a part of, but it was mainly the people around me that were creating this viral content that took them from a a 4-person team to a 25-person team within the matter of 6-7 months. And so you learn about how they changed the game. You learn about Omar Raju, who I got to interview in my book, who's the founder of House of Highlights, and now runs Sports Center's TikTok, Instagram, and other pages for them. So he's got a great story about how he started House of Highlights. It's almost at 40 million followers, or it's just over 40 million followers across all channels. He started that at 0 followers. He started that just posting left and right of different things that he found was cool. And now it's, it is what it is today. It's pretty incredible. It's its own machine in Bleach Report. And then finally, the athlete stories, monetization of athlete social media, where athlete social media kind of took off for Hunter Pence. Went from taboo to something that people really relied on him about, and were like, this is cool that he's big into social media. And things about the NBA bubble and all sorts of stuff. But it's a very cool book that really has a lot of good stories in it, a lot of good themes in it, and you'll just take away a lot of interesting notes if you want to get into the field.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's become such a subject where, kids my age are really wanting to get into social media within sports. And it's really sort of been a huge thing over my life, but especially over the last 10 years, to really help fans get a deeper understanding of their favorite players, their favorite teams. And, that's something that I've really learned about myself, is a huge passion of mine, is, creating that content. We talked about before this, we both are really interested in the deeper parts of sports. And I think that's huge, especially in a marketing purpose, to get people to connect with those fans and teams much closer.
Yeah, I think, LeBron said it best with more than an athlete. I think a lot of these athletes want to have their own voice and want to have a place, because like Hunter Pence, you'll read in the book a little bit, talked about how the only way you get your voice out, 10 years ago, was through the media, and the media can misconstrue what you say. They can jumble your words a little bit here and there, and you had no way of saying this author, this journalist said something right or wrong about you. So social media now gives you a little bit of the line that says, I can go back at it, a writer, and say, you misquoted me, or you didn't play the storyline that I would have loved to see out of this article. And so it gives them more of a voice of saying, hey, I can be out there. I can be kind of my own media outlet, so to speak. Some of these guys are, and I could tell my story. And I think athletes have lost that for a long, long time. And now they finally can get back in the spotlight and showcase themselves on social media. Doesn't matter if they're the best performing player on the field or on the court or on the ice, but it changes because they have the opportunity to showcase their creative skills, their knowledge, and their opinions on social media these days.
Yeah, I completely agree. Anytime you say Hunter Pence, I always think about his really weird batting stance. But it's become such a huge thing, especially in baseball. We saw it for the past few years with Trevor Bauer really trying to implement that player marketing type of mindset within the sport, because a lot of these other leagues, like the NBA, the NFL, they do a really good job of marketing their players. But specifically with the MLB, we've seen a lot more players show their personality on social media. Yeah. A guy like Marcus Stroman, we saw him this past week talk about how the Mets don't want me. And he went out there and let them know. And kind of like you said, with some players, the media taking their words out of context, or, positioning things in a different way, they're able to actually speak out. And it must have been really interesting within your interviews, really hearing about those stories of how players did it.
Yeah, I think a lot of these players that I talked to over a period of time, and, I talked about almost 10 of them from different leagues, and they all kind of had the same sentiment where it's kind of like, I have social media, I have my own camera, I have my own voice, I can tweet whatever I want, I can do whatever I want. Maybe sometimes they'll get fined over something here or there, but for the most part, like Marcus, was saying his feelings about the Mets, and the Mets might have gotten pissed off at him about it, but it's his account, it's his voice, he can do what he wants, and whether they like it or they don't like it, it's just his ability to do it. And you talked about Trevor Bauer, for example, like the momentum company he created, the media company, I think it's a good example of players showing that they can be creative, they can show their own side of the story, they can be very fundamental in like how content is created. Because I think MLB, to all of them is lacking behind, basketball and football specifically, because these athletes, it's kind of like keep the locker room talk in the locker room. Can't talk about this or that. Can't talk about the front office. Can't talk about whatever it may be, because the other guys will get this kind of locker room talk was expressed on it in baseball specifically. But for basketball and football, it's like the leagues are saying go have fun with it, like go do
Right.
what you want, like post what you want. But baseball, there's a little bit of a disparity, and I think I noticed that a little bit in the interviews I did.
That's interesting. And yeah, we've seen it become very apparent for players to use their personality and also use it in a way to sort of express different things, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's mental health in
Mhm.
sports, whether it's just different organizations that they're a part of just to help the greater good and that sort of stuff. And, you also talked about as well that your dad influenced you to want to write this book, and he's the one that actually helped you fall in love with sports. And I also wanted to say I'm so sorry to hear about your dad
Oh
getting
yeah.
cancer recently, and I hope the chemotherapy and everything's going good so far.
Yeah. So, kind of, interesting part. Like, I'll go from, where my dad. I think a big part of my dad and my brother and I, we all got along through sports. We watched it, we played it, we talked about it, we read about it, whatever it was. We were all, that was my upbringing. We would go, listen to Vin Scully, and go to Dodgers games 5 to 10 times a year.
Hmm.
We would go to Clippers games, which my brother got me into a little bit, when they were really bad, or they've been bad for a long time, but when they were really bad, Elton Brand, Corey Maggette, those days were fun to watch, but they were also losing a lot. But like those days and the Rose Bowl games, I mean, my dad was a Penn State, has always been a Penn State fan. He went there. So going to Rose Bowl games versus USC, I think
That's
we've
cool.
seen two of them in the last 10 years. And so just those moments that we've had of bonding over sports always made me want to get into sports. I
Hmm.
say in the book, is like a funny quote, but I say, instead, like I was hoping that I would be, the Jewish Larry Bird one day, but I turned into the mensch on the bench, because I wasn't playing that often, but I would have loved to have played more. I just wasn't athletically talented enough to play in the collegiate NFL, basketball levels, professional leagues. But I want to stay involved in sports to do something, and eventually I got into sports social media, and it's been a career for me the last 8 years. But yeah, my dad, so because of our love of sports, watching him go through cancer, esophageal cancer, from June till September 1, where he had the surgery, a big surgery to, fix his insides literally, to where now he's cancer free, he's doing
Oh,
well,
awesome.
he's walking really, fine again like he used to. He's going to join me in the golf course next year at some point. So,
Love it.
he's really doing well now, and it was tough to see, one of your parents and role models go through chemotherapy and radiation and have a lot of down days. But to see him back where he was before cancer is really a sight for sore eyes. So it's really great to see him get to where he back to where he was. And so it's we're all here to support him and love him and give him all the attention he needs sometimes. But he's a great person, and he's the reason why I love sports so much.
That's amazing. And yeah, we always think back, especially as big sports fans, who are the people that introduced us to, these teams in this love and passion of sports. And I'm so happy to hear that he's cancer free now, because like you said, seeing somebody that you love, one of your role models, go through that is definitely hard to see. But you mentioned as well, I was somebody who wasn't as good athletically as I could have been to be able to play in college or to go on professionally. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I got within sports in a different aspect and now talking about it. But for anyone who is like either my age or even a little bit older than me, who's really interested in sports and getting into social media, how should they get started?
You got to find ways to break into the industry, whether you're younger and you're just like, I want to blog about it, I want to tweet about it, I want to have a voice and opinion about it.
Mhm.
Start somewhere. You don't have to always. I mean, I started my first sports social media job was at Turner Sports, and this big behemoth of a media company with NBA on TNT, NBA TV, March Madness, all this stuff. And I didn't think I would start there, growing up or anything, because I didn't think social media was a career at all. Now to where it is, but I would say just start to build up a voice and opinion, knowledge of content itself. I write in the book, Content is King. So if you can not understand what content works, what doesn't work, what and I've talked to you about in the past, like how to connect with the audience,
Right.
and that's the right type of content. And so that's when I was at Bleach Report, it was like testing out user generated content from the fans.
Mm-hmm.
It was testing out original content. It was testing out memes, testing out branded content, paid content. So when you first understand your voice, I think that's very important, to understand voice of an organization, voice of someone's self, how to get involved in the conversation, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or any other platform. And then understanding content and why content is so important, and why every time you post it needs to be intentional, the way I connect to an audience through my content. And so, yeah, I would say over time you learn that through, good and bad, mistakes and whatnot. But you also develop a sense of knowledge to where you want to take a job in a certain direction because of the way you think of that, how that content connects to the audience, and you're about posting to the audience, and building a connection with them, because
Right.
that's, as a social media manager, that's your role. You're not just posting because you like this piece of content. You're posting because you think the audience will like this and their followers will like it, and it'll increase the following or do other KPIs, that your key performance indicators that your organization wants. So yeah, that's those are definitely the big things that I worry about, is voice, content. But there's a lot of other things that I talk about in the book that you'll see. Social media is more than just what am I posting today. It's a lot of other things involved that help you become successful in the industry.
Exactly. And we always hear about how can the audience engage in your content. And like that's something that I always try to do. If I ask either like a sports question, or if I bring up a subject about a team or a player, I always try and ask the opinion of the audience, because people love to let you know what their opinion is. And especially in the comment section, I always find it kind of cool when, you see people debating back and forth, and you're like, well, I did my job, they're actually engaging in my content. But it was interesting looking at sort of like your journey to Turner Sports, because some people may think, being able to work in sports, especially in social media, can't be that hard. I'll just apply to ESPN. I'll apply to all these big companies.
Yeah.
But you're somebody that was a part of the radio station, the newspaper at your university. You also had internships with the Inland Sixers or 66ers, as well as the Ski Channel, the American Junior Golf Association. And so with everything that you got involved with, is that one of the biggest advice that you would give to people? Just get involved with everything that you can.
Yeah, I think, I think high schoolers these days, maybe middle schoolers, have a better understanding of how to get involved in sports before they even get there to where it is in college and internships and professional, being a professional in this world. It's, for me, it was when I would always pick up the LA Times growing up. And from like the age of 13, 14, I'd pick up the LA Times. I'd read Sports Illustrated for Kids or Sports Illustrated or ESPN, the magazine. I love sports writing. I grew up just loving sports writing. And so that's helped me to this day, because you need to be somewhat of a good writer to be in social media. You can't just tweet out a bunch of fire emojis and mind-blowing emojis and think you're going to get away with it over time. You got to know how to write to the audience and have a voice and be opinionated, but be, really, fun, and have just be entertaining at the end of the day. So, I would say just try to get involved. It can be sports or non-sports, but you want to get experience. At the end of the day, you want experience. It doesn't matter if I went to the ski channel. I never skied in my life, which is true, or went to American Junior Golf Association and never knew anything about public relations, but I wanted to learn public relations because I thought it's an internship. It's good experience. I didn't even do social media at any of these jobs, really, because it wasn't, the go-to thing to do. Is I was learning how to be a good writer, and learning how to be a good writer helped me to this day, because it helps me understand AP style, grammar, punctuation, how to use certain words versus other words in your lingo. And, I think that's where I really grew myself. Is the more experience I had, the more And I write about this in the book, but having what I call a sponge mentality, the ability to learn from the people around you and just
Right.
soak in that knowledge, that's what's helped me to where I am today, because I constantly have grown myself personally and professionally so that I can be the best person I can be each day and just keep getting better over time. So that's what has helped me, is the more experience, internships, things I've done on the side with my businesses and stuff that I've been involved with, and other people I've worked for, has all helped me lead me to this point to where I am, enjoy where I am today because of that experience that I had.
That makes sense. And, I've heard that as well. Always be a sponge, always be curious, ask people questions. Why are you doing this? Why do you do it like
Yeah.
this? And it's always interesting to hear, obviously, why people do things the way that they do, but they're doing it for a reason. And so maybe you can learn something from that. But you've worked for some pretty premier sports companies such as Turner Sports, like you mentioned, Bleacher Report, in the NFL. And so I wanted to hear what was one of the most exciting and rewarding times for all those jobs. You can pick one of the jobs or one thing from each thing, and then also the most stressful time working for one of those jobs.
Exciting times is like when you see one of your first couple viral posts happen in front of your eyes, like something you posted that goes off. I mean, I remember, always remember, I write about this in the book, is that I was on July 4th. I forgot, maybe 2017 or 2018, when, no, probably 2017, when Kevin Durant said he's going to the Warriors. And I was sitting in the office. This is a Bleacher Report. There was maybe 10 people in the whole office out of 300 people. And I'm watching the news. I watched this Players Tribune article happen, and it doesn't say on Twitter like where he's going or what's happening. It says like click through to read the article. And I was just like thinking like, this is a little odd. So I read the article real quickly. I grabbed a photo of Kevin Durant and I said he's going to the Warriors. And it was just simple tweet, but it took off, went viral, and we were the first media outlet to get out that news, other than the Players Tribune saying read my article. So just doing small things like that was cool. I worked my first chapter of the book. I talk about how I worked at NBA on TNT, NBA TV, and working a Christmas shift. You never know what could happen. And there was this moment where Kenny pushes Shaq into the Christmas tree, and I very simply just write "Down goes Shaq," and it with exclamation mark. And that video, this was in 2014, ends up doing like 25 to 30 million views.
Wow.
Just that one post itself on Facebook and Twitter. I don't even have the Instagram numbers, but it probably did well there too. But yeah, like those type of viral posts is great. And then the negative is you get trolls, you get people that hate on your stuff all the time. I mean, I misspelled Muggsy Bogues' name wrong, and I probably, on his birthday, actually, happy birthday, Muggsy Bogues. And I put either two G's in the Muggsy or two G's in the Bogues part. I forgot what it was, but it made me learn a lesson that sometimes you just got to Google his name, copy it, and paste it into the tweet instead. Just be very simple about it. But, the fact that it was up for 10 minutes or something, the tweet had a bunch of screenshots and retweets and replies to us saying you spelled his name wrong. So, there's negative stuff that happens all the time when I've worked past shifts, and they're all learning lessons. You learn that things could be, you could do some great things, and you can have that reward from viral posts and the tap on your back from your fellow professionals around you. But you can also have moments where you're just like, I just screwed up and I don't know how to fix this. And you got to get over and have tough skin and thick skin. And that's what I've learned, to be in this position where you're tweeting and posting to thousands, if not millions of people. You got to really understand there's risk and reward with the job, but you're here to have fun. You're here to post, you're here to learn and develop your skills. And if you don't do that, then you're not growing as a person and a professional in this industry.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's something that is always tough for people, even if you're not working in sports, just dealing with social media is dealing with those trolls. And I think screenshots is something that can get people back in so many different ways. We see a lot of reporters or writers, if they tweet out a thing and it maybe is the wrong team. I've seen that happen once or twice, and then we see the screenshots in their actual tweet, and they're like, "We caught you here." But it's always interesting seeing, how people like yourself sort of deal with it and deal with some of the mental health struggles of working in social media within sports. And it's always something where anytime you hear about that type of stuff, you always hear sort of about the burnout, about how you always got to be on your phone. You always got to be on your toes, ready to post whatever report, whatever update. And so what has your experience been like with that? And how have you been able to avoid a burnout?
Yeah, I think over time, I think you need those like mental health breaks over time where you're unplugged from your phone. You go to some, you do what makes you happy. I mean, for me, I love traveling. I love going to a cool golf course and just playing and not look at my phone for 4 hours, and I think that's tough to do these days because people are so glued to their phone that they don't, step outside of the job sometimes and just realize I'm off. I'm going to put my phone on airplane mode. I'm going to play some golf, go travel, going to go look at it, go to a museum or a movie or something. And we're so glued to our phones that you're just constantly in this like, what's happening next kind of mode, or what am I going to miss kind of mode. And I think that's, I don't have exactly specific instances over time, but there was definitely moments where I felt like that reason of, I screwed up here, or I'm posting thousands of times this week or this month, and you're just wondering like, what am I doing this for? Am I doing this for a paycheck? Am I doing this for my own pride, my own ego that wants to get an ego boost every time I go viral? What am I actually doing this for, and why do I love what I do in sports, specifically in sports social media? And for some people, it does burn them out. I mean, I talked to a good story in the book is I talked to Julie Fayer, who's the Golden State Warriors social media manager for numerous years throughout the championship titles, and she'd get these death threats, DMs, horrible stuff against her because she's a woman working in sports. And you can only imagine the stuff you'll see in the book. Obviously, I want people to buy the book on Amazon, but you'll see in the book these DMs she's got, and it's just horrible. And it eventually burned her out from sports social media to the point where she's just like, I don't know if I want to work in sports social media again because of all the hate and the trolls and the negative DMs she got. It was really affecting her mental health. And so we all need to be cognizant, the 12-year-old troll to the 50-year-old troll that's just sitting in the room, that there's actual people behind this writing this tweet. It's not an intern. It could be a 25 to 35-year-old that's just doing their job, and they have to report the news. They have to post about the team, and doesn't matter if the team is sucking or amazing. There's still a person behind these tweets and behind the Twitter fingers, as they would say. So, you got to always be cognizant of that as a fan and as a person that is, hating on your team because they're not playing well or whatever it may be. But, I think people got to realize that like there's always a human behind this, and they have feelings too, just like you and me. And, we've got to be aware that, they can get down and depressed and ruin their mental health because of something you say, because we could see it all ourselves. So we don't there's not moderation on these hate tweets or hate DMs, and it just happens, and we got to be aware there's always a person behind those posting it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge reminder, and that's something that a lot of people forget. And they're behind their keyboards, they're behind their screen. You can't see me. There's nothing that you can do. So I think that's a huge reminder and something that everybody needs to remember. And this is something that has frustrated me ever since I started, working in sports or being involved in the sports industry, is the lack of respect for women in sports. It really frustrates me. It's something that I think it's amazing, the equality and all the opportunities that we've seen over the past year for women in sports, but the lack of respect, especially on social media, is quite honestly disgusting. And that's something where throughout my voice, whether it's through this podcast, whether it's through my reporting, I want to preach the equality of women in sports, as well as other ethnicities, other races, and as well as talk about mental health in sports. But I think it's our job as men to talk about that type of stuff, to make it normalized. And I've had a lot of people tell me, well, you can't change anything about the equality of women in sports because you're a male. Well, watch me. I'm going to talk about it. And the thing that we lack is that we don't talk about it. We ignore it. We act like it's not an
Mhm.
issue. And especially with mental health too, we got to talk about it. We need to make people feel
Yeah.
like there isn't a stigma around it, that it's okay to not be okay. And
Mhm.
uh it's a huge thing, especially with working in social media and that sort of stuff. And you know, you mentioned as well, before this interview, that you unfortunately had an instance where you were laid off of Bleacher Report. And I can
Mhm.
only imagine what sort of mental struggles that that brought you through, because through COVID, you know, we saw a lot of that happen to a lot of people, and it actually unfortunately happened to my mom. And just the whole feeling of not feeling good enough. And, you know, I did so much stuff for this company, and them just like laying me off feels like that they don't even care about me. So, what did you kind of go through
Yeah.
during that time, and how were you able to overcome it?
Yeah, to give you a little bit of backstory, I got to Bleach Report team. The social media team was about 4 people. I was one of four. And it was just one of those moments where, I was like, this is a cool company. We're going to have fun. We're going to grow it. And over the next 2.5 years while I was there, we grew social media. We became like the disruptors in the industry of sports media in terms of social media. I mean, we were hitting numbers. We were hitting Justin Bieber numbers over a period of time, which is astronomical. And so,
I love
it
that
was cool to
comparison.
see. Yeah, it was cool to see us grow because we weren't just hitting sports media. We weren't just beating ESPN every week and every month. We were getting close to beating Justin Bieber or LeBron James or other people in the industry.
Wow.
So to go from that, and if you ask anyone from Bleacher Report, they'll know who Beanie was because that was my nickname there. And there's a whole backstory behind that I can get to another time. But like, because I was like, beloved by a lot of people in the New York office, it was just crazy to see that. One day I thought I was coming in for a promotion. Next thing you know, I'm going upstairs and being laid off. And you've gotten this mindset after leaving the building, and your whole life being changed in that moment. You're getting this head of like, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? Why did this person get the job over me, or did they stay there? You just constantly are like mentally struggling with this thing that just happened to you that just changed your world, and you're wondering like, what do I do next, and what happens? And the company will put you through like a therapist and say like, don't worry, we'll give you your severance, we're here to help you. But you realize like it takes you a while to realize this is a business decision they made. This is just not personal. They didn't just take me out because they just felt like this is the time to take him out. It was a major layoff through the company, and I was one of them. And you know the therapist and stuff was, had to keep reassuring me it's like not my fault, not something I did wrong. I did my job constantly. I never got like, you did bad here or there from them, any of those
Right.
one-on-one stuff. So you're wondering like, was it me, was it me, was it me? And eventually you got to come to that realization it wasn't me. It was just some decision that some higher up made, and it happens. It's business. And I think, I talked to you about this a little bit, but one of the things that got me through this was this song called Glorious by Macklemore. And he has two lines in the song that really has like helped me through that time in 2018. He said, I made it through the darkest part of the night, and now I see the sunrise. So what you kind of get with that lyric is you understand we all go through dark times and struggles and things,
Mhm.
but it's how you recover and come out on the other side that
Yep.
makes you the person you are today, and which gives you the learning lesson. The other one says, uh, I heard you die twice, once when they bury you in the grave, another time when someone doesn't mention your name, and when someone stops mentioning your name. So it's kind of this part of legacy. And so the two things about like going through struggles and having a legacy in the long run is what kept me going through the day after day of the struggle of, you know, this sucks. This I don't have. I'm fun employed, as some people would say, but I didn't want to be fun employed. I just wanted to do my normal job that I do every day. But it happened, and it made me realize like I gotta move back to LA and move back to home and see my nephew grow up and all this stuff. That deep things that I wanted to see happen. And so things, people will help you get through things. Your family, your support system, your friends, your grandma and grandpa, your whoever it may be will be there around you to support you. Someone is always can always be there to support you through struggling times. And when you find that support system, they lift you up. And when they go through tough times, you can lift them up. And so this is the way, I'm glad that I have a great family behind me to, realize, it's not you. They just made a decision that, it's happened, but we're going to help support you and get you through this and get you over the hump, and you'll come out better at in the other side of it. So I appreciate all the stuff that happened, some therapy, some my family, some Macklemore song, and all got me to where I'm today, which is just turn the page, move on, get over the struggles that you had, and realize there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly. So something that I've heard most recently is you can't go through a breakthrough without going through a breakdown. And, those tough times that, we go through, we don't understand why, and we're not supposed to understand why, because we're going to figure that out later on after we learn from it. And I think the biggest thing, like you said, is having that awareness of what can I learn from this situation. And like you said, it's not about, what happened. It's about how you bounce back. And I think that's a huge thing. And anytime you and I talk, we always preach the same exact quote. And this is something that I, live by, is everything happens for a reason. And we go through different things to help us prepare for the future. And I think that's so tough sometimes for a lot of people to remember. And also just like, what am I grateful for? I have a shelter over me. I have a car. Even if I may have lost my job, I had a job. And there's some people who don't have a job. And like you said as well, the support system is huge, and being able to have those people around you that are able to help lift you up, I think is one of the most important things.
Yeah, I think everyone needs that support system, and everyone needs someone to call when they're down, and someone, to talk to. As soon as the layoff happened, I called my mom and dad, and they were at work, but I called my sister and she picked up and just listened to me talk and talk and talk. And so when you have somebody around you that can support you through the good times and the bad times and and all kinds of times you go through in your life, then that really makes you feel, yeah, I am privileged. I'm privileged and happy to have the people around me that can do things for me that, can really back me up when I'm down, and lift me up when I need to be lifted up. And so I'm glad to have people around me, and we grow up in a world, especially in the United States, that people take for granted what they have in their world, in their life: a roof over their heads, a car to drive, food on the table, these things that are necessary to us, but we take them for granted. And so when you can get over that fact of I'm happy to live the life I can live because the people around me and my family helped raise me this way, then you could take more things for granted in life and really understand that, we grew up in a certain way that we can be, better, and we can help others and repair the world because we grew up with such a nice upbringing at times. So why can't we do more for others around us?
Couldn't agree more. And what you said before as well with the legacy, I think is a huge thing as well. That's something that I've really tried to express to people around me. Is what are people going to remember you for when they're at your funeral? Even though it may sound deep, it's the reality. It's going to happen. I've unfortunately had to be a part of a few funerals, and I've thought about that. What are people going to think of me when I'm on my deathbed? I think that's a very real question that you need to ask yourself, and it helps you also motivate. It also helps motivate you to be a better person and work hard every single day. So then you're proud of what the legacy that you left. But one question that I like to ask all my guests at the end of the interview is if there's any advice that you give to your younger self, what would it be?
I think for my younger self, it would kind of, be what we just talked about a little bit, is you're going to go through hard times, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And there's always people that are going to support you to help you find that light. And so if you have, if you realize that you're going to go through layoffs, you're going to go through deaths, you're going to go through struggles, you're going to go through maybe, bankruptcy or car accidents or whatever it have be, because no one has a perfect life. You got to learn that there's always lessons to take from all these things that happen to you, and they're going to go through hard times over and over, and it happens. You're going to go through great times, but you always can have a learning lesson through anything that you go through, because life is worth living to the full extent of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have a layoff any other way. I wouldn't have me moving around city to city finding new jobs any other way, because it taught me to be the person I am today. And I'm glad that I've gone through the ups and downs, because I've come out on the better side because of it. And I've learned a lot along the way.
I love it. I think that's great advice for anybody. And for anyone that wants to learn more about yourself, sort of what you're doing at Green Park Sports, and also read your book, The Evolution of Sports Social Media, where can they find all that?
Yeah, reach out to me. I think actually LinkedIn, if I give any tips to anyone, I think LinkedIn is one of the most underrated platforms today. I've connected with so many people through LinkedIn to get them into this book. So contact me on LinkedIn, Aaron Eisman, Eisman. Contact me through LinkedIn, message me, add me as a connection. I'm happy to talk to whoever, whether you're a high schooler or you're in the middle of your career and you don't know what you want to do next. I'm happy to talk to you and give you some minutes of my time just to pass things on. So find me on LinkedIn, find me on Twitter, A Siegel Eisman, SIEGALEISMAN. I'm sure you're going to link all this. And then finally, find me on Amazon. My book is on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and a couple other book websites. And all you have to do is search The Evolution of Sports Social Media, or just Sports Social Media on Amazon. And I'm one of the top 3 things that pops up. So find me there, buy the book, send it to me. I'll sign it for you. I'll give you some words of wisdom. And I appreciate anyone supporting myself, the book, or anything else, because the part of the book proceeds go to Cancer Foundation in my dad's name and honor. And so if I can do anything in this world is to help give back, to help, other people that go through struggling times, that they can I can be a shoulder to cry on. And I can also, just, help repair the world however it needs to be. So if it needs to be selling some books to help a cancer foundation, that's what I'm going to do. And we'll see where things go with the book. We'll see things go in the future, but I'm happy to be on this and talk about my story a little bit more. And if you want to buy the book or you want to just talk, let me know.
Yeah, definitely reach out to Aaron. We actually got connected through LinkedIn. I'm very grateful that we did. And we had a great conversation talking about my journey, and he gave me some great advice for social media. So definitely go and reach out to him. And like he said, great proceeds go to cancer research from this book. And it's definitely a great book, great resource for anybody looking to go into sports and social media. So definitely check it out. Really appreciate your time today, Aaron.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Jake.